Welcome to this week's Rider Support.
Today we're going to talk about how you can maintain motivation during the season, cycling fashion, the best pedals if you're a newbie. But first, we couldn't really start any other place, could we? It's Unbound and Lachlan Mortons.
Anthony, let's get straight into the questions. We've so much to cover this week. Hi, Anthony and Sarah. Watching Unbound over the weekend has really inspired me. I'm a roadie, but I'm going to try branch out into gravel riding this summer. Looking at Lachlan Mortons' win, what do you think he did different this year to finally get that top spot on the podium? And what are the things he does that I can bring across to my new gravel era? And that's from JP.
Is Lackey coming on the show? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Can't confirm, can't deny.
Oh, that would be so amazing. Well, you and Lachie are basically best friends anyway. You've been out boozing together. So some of those stories from the pub, maybe.
The question, I just got so excited about talking about Lachlan. It's like, what's the question again?
He's such a dude, isn't he? Okay, so this guy, basically, JP wants to know, what do you think Lachie did this time around in Unbound to get him on the podium? And then secondly, what can JP, he's now going to try gravel riding. What can he take from Lachie's, his fitness, his preparation that he bring, that this
essentially has Lachlan killed the spirit of gravel? I think that's what we're talking about here.
Reading between the lines, I think so. I mean, has he killed the spirit of gravel?
I got a text off one of my friends literally as soon as the race finished saying, it's official, the spirit of gravel is dead. And look, none of us really know what the spirit of gravel is, this weird nebulous concept Pete Stetton seemed to coin, and I've chatted to him on the podcast about it. Lachlan wore the aero helmet that, I don't know, maybe Wes can find a clip from a few weeks ago of me saying I wouldn't be caught dead wearing that aero helmet. And
he rocked it. It looked cool on him. But Lachlan is a poster boy. I mean, his position on the bike, his bike setup, his helmet. He could literally wear a monkey suit and he'd just still, an EF monkey suit, he'd still look so cool.
Yeah, okay, it sounds like you have a crush, so settle down. Lachlan, he wore an aero helmet, not exactly spirit of gravel. He wore a skin suit, not exactly spirit of gravel. He wore a set of aero socks, not exactly spirit of gravel. I don't know if he was in the wind tunnel and stuff. I'm sure he was. All of this just kind of means that he's doing what everybody else is doing. He's doing what all the contenders in gravel are doing now. They're going further and further down this rabbit hole because the rewards are greater and greater. They're leaving nothing they're leaving nothing to chance anymore, be that their training, their nutrition, or their bike setup. And Lachlan, I still feel like he's towing a nice line between not being super world tour serious, but still being serious enough to be competitive at the pointy end of it. And I think it was actually a little bit of a win for the spirit of gravel because he doesn't have that orthodox preparation. I know he's back working with a coach this season and he's structured training again for the first time in years. But he's also, if you follow him on Instagram, he was like running on the beach and stuff in the week before the race. And
that was
that's just not doing that before
that was his prep. I mean, he did have a very open and honest, I think, interview in Roller a few weeks ago where he said that, at this stage of his career and his life, he didn't kind of want to go down that like crazy rabbit hole of high performance, the diet restrictions, the constant training, the obsessing about equipment, bike, training, food. And he was kind of going to start taking a different approach to the bike. And maybe he was coming into a new era himself. So it is interesting that he took a week in the lead up to Unbound. He's jogging on the beach and then he's gone and won it. I mean, it certainly helped that Keegan Swenson, who has won it before and has won the Lifetime Grand Prix last year, he came down in a crash. And
I don't know if that affected the race too much.
You don't think so?
Nah, look, Lachie was out with Chad Haga already. They already had over 2 minutes from what I can see. The coverage, must be said, from Lifetime was brilliant, and it's getting better and better. It was an hour of highlights between the men's and the women's race, which was phenomenal, but it's still not Eurosport 6 hours of live coverage. I don't know if it's desirable or if we'll ever get there, so we're not entirely sure what happened to Keegan. I know that he crashed because he shared pictures afterwards pretty cut up. I'm assuming he was in that chase group. He was in it at one point and then a flashback to him and he wasn't in it and they didn't cover his crash. We just know from social media that he did crash. I think there was so many good riders in that race that they almost cancel each other out. Like if you think about that chase group, Greg Van Avermaet is in the chase group. Matt Beers, who we had on the podcast, was doing over 500 watts for 20 minutes. His normalized power was insane from the race. I think his normalized power was like 320 watts. Someone correct me in the comments for a 9-hour race, which is massive.
Is legit. I mean, he won Cape Epic this year. So, I mean,
three times he's won it.
3 times. That's insane. What do you think JP can glean from the Unbound that just happened? I mean, does he have to go down this rabbit hole that the likes of Dylan Johnson go down, where absolutely every single minute detail? I mean, Dylan Johnson told one of the publications this week when they were taking pictures of his bike, he was going to go home that evening and shave the knobble, those kind of like knobbles that are left on the tires after the manufacturer when it's pulled off the line. He was going to go and shave them off.
And it worked. He got a top 10.
Yeah, no, we love Dylan. We love his show, his commentary. He's very open about products he tests everything to the nth degree. But does JP have to take that kind of ethos into his new gravel era, as he's calling it?
I think it's like anything. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out. I don't think you need to be super serious if you're not at a super serious level. These are the very best gravel riders in the world. If you look at what are the very best 4K pursuiters in the world doing, they're in the wind tunnel, they're optimizing helmets, they're optimizing sock choice, they're optimizing lines, pacing strategies, fueling. It's the tip of the spear. It's the pointy end of anything is going to be like that. If you talk about different careers, finance, there's no balance at the pointy end of finance. People are addicts. It's not really a desirable pursuit to replicate, I don't think. I think there's a lot more enjoyment out of being in something a little bit, I don't say half-assed, but not putting everything into it and turning your whole life upside down, especially when you're not paid to turn your whole life upside down like Lachlan, Keegan, these guys are.
We have to give a shout out, obviously, to the female winner, who was Rosa Klosser. She's a German athlete. She's not even involved. She's not one of the 30 lifetime Grand Prix athletes. So sorry, she won Unbound, but she doesn't race officially all of the lifetime pre races. So it was kind of cool to see somebody come from left of field. And I know everyone does know Rosa from the scene, but it was really cool to see those girls who were part of the lifetime.
It was a 9-up sprint for the girls.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing to watch. And of course, before we move on from that, we can't but shout out to Matej Mohoric, who is the gravel world champ this year. He DNF'd, and I think his comment afterwards was, I think I am going to stick to road racing. Love Matej.
I know you want to move on from Unbound because we've loads to cover, but a brilliant, I've had so many of the Unbound athletes on the podcast. Sofia Gomez, who was last year's winner, Hannah Otto, and all of them last year had basically the same request from Lifetime. Can we have our own separate race? And Lifetime listened to them. They answered, and the women had their own separate race this year, which was brilliant to see.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying that it wasn't going to make a big difference, that the guys were, they were all eventually going to get mangled up with the girls and the guys. It was going to affect the final of the race anyway, but it didn't. Those 9 girls came in on their own, and it was really, really exciting to watch.
And something we noticed actually was the 2 lanes for the sprint, because we rewatched the 2023 Keegan's win, and Keegan is finishing the 200 at the same time that some of the age group athletes are finishing the 100, and he's sprinting like tight against the barriers, literally 6 times the speed of the finishers of the Unbound 100 with centimeters to spare. It was very dangerous.
It felt like that age, that age rider, the 100 mile was kind of almost closing Keegan off by accident. Going into the barriers. Yeah, that was kind of scary. So this year we saw a separate shoot for the 200 mile finisher. So that looked a lot safer. But yeah, what an epic race. They're heading to Crusher in the Tusher for the next race. That's a pretty cool race to watch as well. So
I'm hopeful we'll get over for the end of the season for Big Sugar.
Big Sugar.
The plan. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to get training for that one. Okay, next question. Hi, Anthony and Sarah. I've been cycling forever and I'm amazed at the insane culture or fashion of all black clothing that appeared in the last few years. And that's from Oliver. No real question there, Oliver. I think it's just kind of an observation. We all see it. I have to say I'm a little bit guilty of this. I love a bit of navy kit. And I'm always getting an earful from you going out in dark kit. We actually designed some bright coloured orange Roadman kit for over the winter, which I did wear to try and become a little bit more visible on the road. But it definitely is a trend, isn't it, at the moment? These muted colours, even
is that a problem with it?
I think so. That's what I'm
visibility.
I think so. You know, all these like muted colours, the greens, the greys, it just blend in.
Panormal bros.
Yeah, the panormal. They just blend in beautifully with the foliage and the grey skies and the tarmac.
Yeah, the panormal have like they've stolen their colour palette from like the US military. It's all very camo. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this lad's just listening to too much Johnny Cash. I always see you dressed in black. I never see a suit of colour on your back.
I don't know. I think it's just, it looks kind of cool. I think the culture of all the really gaudy, bright coloured kit is kind of gone at the moment. I hope that changes, because I do think it's much, much safer to wear fluorescent. And when I talk about fluorescent clothing and bright clothing online, on Twitter, usually there's always people who kind of say that, oh, well, people are now kind of blind to fluorescent, that everyone's used to seeing fluorescent at the moment out there on the roads. So drivers become almost blind to it, and it makes absolutely no difference at all. But there has been a lot of studies done basically that do back up that fluorescent clothing does work and makes you more visible. And these are all independent review papers that have been done basically in the last 10 years.
Pause 1 second and think about the evolution of cycling kit. So for a long time you had pro kit or you had high vis kit.
Yeah.
And like I'm talking about when I got started in cycling, like 2008, 2009, even like earlier than that when I was cycling in university. Kit was terrible. Kit was, you were like a walking billboard for these pro teams, plastered all over you. So your only choice was that, and the replicas that you were getting were quite low quality kit, as the whole industry was quite low quality at the time, or your stupidly high vis stuff that people were commuting into work. They were your only two choices. And then we've seen cycling culture evolve where if I had walked into a coffee shop back in 2008 wearing my cycling kit, the whole restaurant would have been looking at you going, what is this insane person wearing body paint coming into a cycling coffee shop? But that got so normalized with the expansion of Team Sky and all of us starting to cycle, these mass participation events, Sky rides all over the UK. And with that, cycling kit evolved to the point where you were actually quite fashionable. You were quite proud to be wearing this kit out and about. It wasn't covered in sponsors. It was kind of mimicking high street fashion trends. And that's where it's been. But now we're seeing this push for visibility again, but I don't want the push for visibility, because obviously road safety is important, but I don't want that to come at the expense of cycling kit being horrible to wear again. Because I do think it's a little bit of a cyclical trend.
It's like a fashion. It's fashion. It all goes around, comes around, you know. And yeah, I totally agree with you. And another point on the fluorescent and really bright gear is that it's like a helmet. You can't use that as an excuse not to, you know, take responsibility for your actions and your ability to have a well-maintained bike and being able to handle it properly. So yeah, it is an observation. I kind of agree with Oliver. The clothing has become a lot more muted.
It's a small bit of victim blaming though. Like with you have to wear fluorescent. Well, like just get off your phone. You don't need as much reaction time to see me if you're not on your phone, if you're not on your Tesla with your bloody iPad on the dashboard and so distracted. Like you should be able to spot somebody in a black jersey in the middle of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when a couple of months ago, any of the regular listeners will know that I got hit by a car, and I was in probably navy kit, not very bright kit, but it was the middle of the day. I do not know how that woman did not see me. She just mowed directly into me. So what are you smiling at? So yeah, I don't know.
You mowed directly into me.
She
I think
mowed
you
me
over.
down.
I got it.
I did not topple over, excuse me.
People have a visual of you getting hit with 140 kilometers an hour mowed down. Topple over 2k an hour.
Absolutely no fun. Some of those slow speed crashes can be as painful as the high speed ones. Anthony.
Only people that say that are people who haven't crashed at high speed.
Okay, thanks for your question there, Oliver. Okay, next question. This is from Lance. Hello, Sarah. Non-clip-in pedals. Can you please provide recommendations? Anthony, you're going to help me out with this one because I've never used non-clip-in pedals or flat pedals in my life. Even on a mountain bike, I clip in.
There's two sets. Shimano, the EF205 are flat pedals. Also, Crank Brothers have a set that I've used before, the Stamp 1 pedals. I've used both those mountain biking when I was getting started. Look, not much to be said on them. They're flat pedals. They're both good choice. I would say don't use flat pedals. Get used and just bite the bullet and use your clip-in pedals earlier, even if you're mountain biking. Hey Roadman, excuse the short interruption. I love riding the bike, but on account of being so busy with the podcast at the moment, I'm now what's called a time-crunched rider. I never thought I'd see the day. But I have a tool. I'm using Wattbike to keep myself sharp and on point with specific sessions to maximise that available training time. I have a Wattbike Atom right here in the recording studio beside me, and when I have an hour in between interviews, I jump on. It's removing all the friction points for me. There's no more 10-minute setup, unfolding legs, banging my knees off stuff, getting my hands dirty, the usual connection issues. It just works every single time. The Atom's perfect for virtual racing as well because it has crisp gear changes, it has 1% accuracy, and it has max gradient capability of up to 25%. If you're looking for an indoor trainer, I honestly couldn't recommend this any higher. I've been using a Wattbike since 2013. Honestly, it's the last indoor trainer that you're ever going to need. If you head on over to wattbike.com now and use code ROADMAN10, that's ROADMENTEN, and that's going to get you 10% off your Wattbike.
Yeah, I get a couple of strange looks when I'm mountain biking and I've got my clip-in gravel shoes on. I very rarely see people clipping in when I'm up there, but maybe that's just
circles you're moving in.
Circles I'm moving in, exactly. Okay, next question. Hi Anthony, what is this I hear about you starting a new podcast? When's it kicking off? And that's from Andrew Harrison.
Andrew, yes. So if you can follow me on Twitter, we have a new podcast kicking off, and that is June 10th. The idea was, I suppose, if you journey back to when we started this podcast, the idea with the podcast was I was in a place where I was quite stuck, and the podcast was a tool for me to recapture my health and happiness through cycling. But then we had 1,000 episodes of this podcast, and I realized that it's not just cyclists that are stuck trying to recapture their health and happiness. So the other podcast, it's only once a week. It's a little bit of a side hustle. It's a bit of an indulgent project for me on the side where I can have non-cycling conversations and indulge those other interests I have outside cycling. But it's going to have the same kind of central theme as this podcast. How do we recapture health and happiness, just not as cycling focused? It's going to be everything else from, Stoic philosophy to finance to diet to strength and conditioning, anything that's not cycling. So June 10th.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Anthony saw that he had, an 45 minutes free in his calendar every week and was like, I have to fill that somehow. So he decided he would do another podcast. Okay, next question. Hi, Anthony. I'm training and racing a few years now. My question is, what techniques do you use to stay positive and keep a winning mindset? I really struggle with this. If I'm not seeing a really quick progression or not getting results that I wanted, I drop my head and get into a bit of a negative tailspin. I've jumped from sport to sport when I don't get these results or fall short, but have really fallen in love with cycling. So don't want to fall back into that trap again. And that's from Stuart. That's an amazing question.
Yeah, it's an amazing question. I can see how people are attracted to that question or that kind of thinking when you haven't been in sport that long. But if you think about anything you do in your life, whether it's the start of a relationship, whether it's the start of a new hobby, learning a new language, you're going to get pretty quick progress at the very start, but you never maintain that rate of progress. Like, it's impossible. You never maintain that steep growth curve. It's going to plateau and you're going to have almost imperceptible gains for long periods. And that's just the way it is. And you can look back and you can snapshot now. Like, think about the podcast, 1,000 episodes. Maybe the first 10 episodes when you're like, okay, I figured out how to connect the microphone. I figured out how to, edit.
This is a massive win. Yeah.
Well, you don't get big gains then from episode 200 to episode 800. But if you look at episode 220 versus episode 820, you're like, oh my God, that's a totally different product. It's the same with your training. If you go to the gym or if you're on the bike 3 days a week, whatever it is, those gains aren't going to be visible. So I would say you need to just focus on what you can control. And what you can control is your inputs. You can control how much you train. You can control your nutrition. You can control your sleep, your recovery. Control that stuff. And Dave Brailsford, the Team Sky brain child, he famously said, control the controllables. And that's what it is. Calibrate the effort and the improvement in these areas, and then the results will look after themselves. I also think you can set shorter term goals. So they could be, with cycling, it's easy if you want to put a power goal in place. I don't love those goals because it leads us to believe that a good bike rider is someone who can generate a lot of power, when it's a lot more nuanced than that. How do you move around the bunch? Economy, cornering. Can you take your raincoat off in a crosswind? Cycling's very nuanced, but you can definitely set short-term goals. Like, I love the goal of, well, did I ride more than 12 hours a week every week this month? Like, that's a lovely goal for me. So that's one I would encourage you. The biggest one, though, it's like you talked about there with your mountain biking, people saying, the people you're surrounding yourself with aren't clipped in. I would say that community is the biggest thing in cycling, and that's what's going to have you staying in cycling the longest. I honestly can't see a time where I will not cycle my bike. I maybe won't race, or maybe won't do gravel events. I'm always going to ride my bike. I'm always going to ride my bike on a sunny day. And I think that's just community, isn't it? It's having friends. Like, I'm going to go bike packing again this summer. Like, we're gonna do bike packing day. So we went last year. What did we do? 3 days?
Yeah.
Or we didn't 2 days last year. And we're going to do 3 days this year. Yeah. So the plan is we're going to add in one extra day each year.
Every year, yeah.
And Sarah got a kick in last year.
I got an absolute hiding. At one stage, I just managed to roll up beside Anthony, and I was like, why are you turning the screws on me here?
And then we got to Kinsale, and you ended up having a little bit of a boo.
I have my traditional cry after every hard day on the bike that I have. But yeah, I think for me with this guy, like, okay, so he wants to, he's fallen in love with cycling. So he wants to kind of get some longevity out of this sport, not just like, okay, I'm racing, I'm going to win. And if I don't win, if I don't hit this goal, then I'm a loser. Well, it sounds to me that you need to also like do what Anthony says, but maybe have a little look at your attitude and your relationship with exercising and performance, and why they are so kind of caught up and you have to be a winner. Why does that matter so much when you found something that you absolutely love? And as I said, you want to have some longevity in it. So try and maybe, as you said, stay with a group, stay with clubs, try and pass down some of your knowledge to other people and get some like joy from other parts of cycling rather than just performance and winning.
Because if it's about winning, you're in the wrong sport. Like if it's football, it's a binary outcome. For me, you win, you lose. You're going to win 33% of the time. In cycling, you're going to lose. The very best riders in the world, they're losing over 90% of the time. Yeah, so it can't be about winning. It has to be about something else. Roadman, I know how serious you take your goal setting, whether they're fitness or life-related goals. If you're looking for a powerful ally to support you on this journey, look no further than Huel. Huel has become my secret weapon for when I don't have time to prepare a balanced meal. It ensures I get the nutrition I need without sacrificing time or taste. Plus, it stops me from reaching for that takeaway menu. I always throw a bottle into my backpack when I'm heading into the city to work, and it stops me eating junk convenience foods, snacking on croissants and bars of chocolate, because I know they don't support my training goals. It's a handy, nutritious meal on the go, and it's got over 22 grams of protein. Huel is perfect for athletes that don't have time to cook or prepare food before a training session. It's convenient, nutritious fuel at your fingertips, ensuring you hit your daily fueling needs for that session. Huel Ready To Drink has 26 essential vitamins and minerals in every single bottle. You're getting a whopping 175 health benefits. Plus, it's made from natural ingredients like tapioca, sunflower seed, coconut, and more. The best part, it's the flavours. There's 8 crazy, beautiful flavours. Iced coffee is what's in my backpack right at the moment. You can get Huel directly to your home. All you got to do is head on over to the Huel website, huel.com/roadman.
That would be my advice. Just try and maybe move your North Star a little bit. Okay, last question. Hi, Anthony. I'm signed up for the Wicklow 200 this weekend. I'm starting it with a group of riders that I train with occasionally. Some riders are stronger than me and some are weaker. I have 3 questions for you. How do I broach the subject of splitting up? Judging by the chat on our WhatsApp group, some people think we're all going to wait around all day for each other and finish as a group. Number 2, what's the etiquette of tagging along with other groups as you come across them on the road if they're going the same speed as you? How long do I ride in the front, etc.? And lastly, do you have any other tips for getting through the 200-kilometer day? And that's from Cahill. Okay, we'll take those one by one, will we?
Yeah, so the first one, it's about broach the subject of splitting up.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to split up. I think if you don't want to split up, you don't have to split up. Like
he does want to split up. He wants to split up. He's stronger than some people. He's weaker than other people. And he wants to broach the subject of splitting up.
I think if you're going out as a group, ride as a group.
Oh, I totally disagree.
Well, then why go as a group?
Well, I think if you're meeting up with people or you might bump into them, but if you've trained for your 200-kilometer Wicklow 200, and this is like your targeted event, okay? And you've been on your Wattbike, you've been religiously training and sticking to your sessions. Why would I go and there's somebody way weaker than me, someone who wants to stop every 10 minutes, take pictures, someone who wants to stop at every food stop?
None of this is based on the question though.
But I'm just saying, I will say to the group that I am going to do my own thing. That's exactly what I did last year when I did the Wicklow 200.
Okay, but if we just take the question. So if we just take his specific situation, like he doesn't say that's his target event and he doesn't say the others are going to be stopping for our pictures.
But he does say he wants to broach the subject of splitting up.
Yeah, so my question will be on that why. I don't think it's a good idea. I think if you're going to go out as a group, you stay together as a group. So I think, like, I'm going to ride it with one of my old teammates and his dad, who's nearly 70 years old at the weekend. I'm not going to just meet them and then hit it on the first climb and his 70-year-old dad is left behind for a day.
But last year you rode it with a group of guys and loads of them were left way behind because you and a couple of the guys were way stronger. So it's like, it naturally split.
Yeah, so I think you can define your goals going into the day. If you're going as a group and you're saying we're going to stay as a group, I think stay as a group. If you're going for a hard workout like we were last year to have a hard day in preparation for something else, I think that's different. I think that's, people know what they're buying in for. But generally, I think if you're going out as a group of friends and if someone is stronger, you can ride the climb, which is typically where someone's going to get dropped, double back for them, and then ride the climb at their pace over the top. Now, it's different if there's a chasm in ability and somebody has to stop for, like you were saying, if somebody's stopping for pictures or somebody's stopping for 10 minutes at the top of a climb, like you go up and you double back and then you're riding the climb with them and then they're stopping for 10 minutes.
At the food stops.
Yeah, there's no urgency. But
yeah.
I don't think that's, maybe it's me reading into the question as much as you are on the other end, but that doesn't sound like the dynamic of the group to me. It just seems like there may be different abilities within the group.
No, I agree with you, but I do think there will be a lot of people going to these massive sportives. And as I said, I did this race last year and not a race.
Not a race. And that's the key point where it turns on. It's not a race.
But I did this last year and I was going out with a guy, Chris, shout out to Chris, who you actually coach. And I basically said to Chris at the very beginning, we are not sticking together all day long if our abilities aren't the same. Like, there's just no point. I've trained too hard for this. I want to give it my best shot. I want to do it in a time that I'm really, really proud of. And if you're stronger than me, I'm happy to sit in your wheel. But if I'm stronger than you, I'm going to shoot on. And I was just really, really honest about that. The next part of this question, though, he says, which makes me think that he wants to break up this group even further, is what's the etiquette of tagging along with other groups as you come across them on the road? So that did happen last year. I was riding on my own for a little bit, portions of it, and then you come across or you catch up with groups that are going roughly around the same speed as you, or you come out of the feed stations, you kind of get in with a group. What's your advice for joining?
I don't think
there's
a problem there with jumping into another group. I don't think don't overthink how long to ride on the front for, etc. It's not a race. This is like an event where everyone's out together. Like, there's going to be very mixed abilities from people who are just starting all the way up to pros or ex-pros. A lot of people are just going to be out enjoying themselves in these type of sportives. So you don't need to worry about how much time I'm riding at the front. Like, if I'm in a group, I'll happily sit on the front for 5 hours, not expect someone to come around me or for a turn. It's not like in a race where you're trying to conserve energy and play this little
This is quite funny
shadow
because
boxing
this
game.
is really showing up the differences and experiences that we've had, me as like a leisure cyclist and you as a high performance athlete, because I've been in these sportives, in the middle of them, and there is so many groups and so many people who are like really, really trying their best and really pushing. And for Cathal, if you're jumping into other groups that are going faster or as fast or you're comfortable in that group, you will notice that some of them are kind of like a motley crew of people who've just kind of like banded together and there's no organization. And then you will also have other groups where there is like rolling through, it's very organized, there's shouts to do a little bit of work. So what I would say if you're coming into a group is just read the room and kind of see.
Yeah, that's the best advice, I think.
Yeah.
Just read, like you'll know if people are starting to roll through, if it's like kind of on, you'll get a sense. Also, you'll get a sense if people are safe or dangerous, because his last part is any other tips. And I think that's the main thing. It's like you want to have fun. You don't want to be in a group that are taking unnecessary risks beyond their ability on descents, around corners at speed. Because given that marshals at these things are going to be fatigued because they're standing there for 7-8 hours stopping traffic. So you want to be safe and have a good day. And that'd be kind of my main tip for it, outside of eat.
Yeah, that's my number one tip is eat. I set my alarm for every half an hour on my Garmin and I ate a Turkish delight every half an hour, which is insane. Kind of makes me want to vomit thinking about it now. I stocked up at all the food stations. I didn't dilly-dally, got loads into my pockets and just kept on eating. That was literally the only thing that got me through that day. So that's my absolute number one tip.
Yeah, eat and drink. I think if you can eat 60 to 100 grams of carbs per hour, read the back of wrappers and see how many grams of carbohydrates there are an hour. Don't do anything new. Hydrate loads. Don't wear any new kit. And yeah, have fun.
Have fun. Don't forget.
That's it, folks. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Rider Support. If you enjoyed this conversation with myself and Sarah, there's another conversation up here I had earlier in the week with Dan Martin, which I know you're absolutely going to love, looking back on some of the highs and lows of his amazing career. And also click up here to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our upcoming content.